With every passing day, hundreds and thousands came to him. His home became a mandir with a moving and loving, smiling and playful deity. Yes, it was him and only him who turned everyone's tears into streams of bliss. As the bud blossomed to reveal 1,000 petals, it can only be said that the fragrance of the first few years is unique.
Human life is all about the pursuit of happiness. Whatever that we do, ultimately the reason why we do it is because we want to be happy. But this happiness is so elusive. Even if we are happy, we are not able to keep that happiness sustained because it's only temporary happiness. So the quest of human life can be summarized as the pursuit of permanent happiness. Speaking of which, I'm reminded of an episode from the life of Dr. T. Ravi Kumar. He had to do his doctorate at the Sri Krishna Devaraya University. Whenever he would get any holiday, he would rush to Bhagwan's presence, needless to say. So once when Swami was in Vrindavan, he rushed to Vrindavan and he was waiting outside the bungalow, and Swami called him in for an interview. In the interview room were many others also, and in all of their presence, Swami looked at him and asked, "Ravi, how come you are here?" He said, "Swami, it's a holiday, it's a weekend, that's why I have come here." Swami said, "But why did you come here?" "Swami, I came here for darshan." "Why do you want to have darshan?" "Swami, because it gives me bliss." "It gives bliss or happiness?" Swami asked. "Swami, bliss. What is the difference?" And that is when Ravi Kumar sir says that it was a beautiful answer that got prompted from within. So he said, "Swami, if I am hungry now and I get a gulab jamun to eat, I will feel happiness. But Swami, 5-10 years from now, if I am feeling hungry and I don't get anything to eat, at that time if somebody reminds me of the gulab jamun I had eaten 5-10 years back, I won't feel happy at all. In fact, I will feel more miserable than before. Because before I was only hungry, now I am hungry with an image of a delicious gulab jamun. But Swami, today I am having your darshan, I am feeling blissful. 10 years from now, if I am unable to have your darshan, if I think of this moment when I am having your darshan, I will feel the same bliss, Swami. That is why this is bliss and that is happiness. Bliss is permanent happiness, and that comes only in union with God. It is to seek that kind of a permanent happiness and bliss that we have all gathered here. In fact, I used to think that the best definition of bliss is permanent happiness, till I got a better definition given by Swami himself. Again, this happened to another research scholar, Sanjay Mahalingam. Swami had called him, and in the interview room, Swami asked him directly, "What is bliss?" Sanjay is well read in all these scriptures and texts and everything. So he gave many beautiful definitions of what is bliss. Swami kept saying, no, not that. And finally, Swami himself gave a definition, such a beautiful, perfect definition. Swami said, causeless happiness is bliss. When you are feeling happy, ask yourself why you are feeling happy. Why am I feeling happy? I'm feeling happy because tomorrow I'm going to go on a vacation to the Himalayas. That is not bliss because it has a cause. Why are you happy? I don't know, I'm just happy. That is bliss. Causeless happiness is bliss. And that comes only in union with God. That is the reason why great devotees of the Lord, nothing affects them. Whatever be the difficulties in their life, they are there as examples to show that let anything happen, bring it on. You can't take away. Kharch na khoote, chor na loote. That's what Mirabai said. You can't spend it, nobody can steal this. Every day it keeps growing.
One of our brothers in Radio Sai, when Swami was giving them a lot of attention when he was a student, he was part of the Burrakatha group, and Swami would call them often for an interview. At one point, it was like a shower which would never stop. It was relentless, Swami's grace. And the three boys whom Swami had been calling every day, at one point they became very emotional and they said, Swami, you're giving us so much. Swami is showering so much love on us. And what Swami said in return was very important and worth remembering even today for all of us. Swami said, when I give, accept it. And when it is not there, think of these days and feel happy. And when Arvind was describing that event or that answer which Ravikuma sir gave, he said, if I can think back on these moments I spend with you, I can still feel happy. How true that statement is, how true that bliss is, that even though we were not part of that moment, we can sit here, reminisce those moments and feel happy. In the January of 1946, Swami began to travel, and Swami began to travel extensively. From some of the letters which Swami wrote, it looks like Swami was in Prashantinilayam for most part of January. Then Swami travelled to Secunderabad in probably mid-January. Then Swami came back to Parthi, and then he went again to Tirupati. And how do we know this? It's from a letter that Swami wrote to a couple. This is Mr. Madhoji Rao and his wife Sharada Bai, whom Swami used to call Shankaramma. Swami writes a letter to this couple, a very sweet letter, and from what Swami has written, you can kind of muse what that letter from Madhoji Rao was. And that probably is a complaint which Swami has got from 1940s. He gets it even today, and he's going to continue to get it forever. Because that devotee had written to Swami, Swami, have you forgotten us? We are all poor devotees, you have better devotees to think about, so you have forgotten us. So in response to that mail, Swami writes a sweet mail. Swami says, how can you say like this? I've been very busy. Do you know how many people are coming here? There are thousands of people coming to the mandir, and I'm waking up at 4 in the morning. I'm sleeping at late in the night, and all of that Swami writes. And then Swami says, don't worry, I will come. Last time we had spoken about this couple. They had come to Swami after an extended disaster in their family. The wife of Madhoji Rao had given birth to 7 sons, and each one of those sons had died few days after birth. You can imagine what trauma that couple would have gone through, what trauma the mother would have gone through. For the 8th time when she was pregnant, they come to Swami, and then Swami materializes grapes and gives it to this mother and says, don't worry, this son will be born healthy and he will live. And Swami says, I will come and name him. 8th of March. The child is born, and Swami had promised, I'll come and visit the child. So what did Swami do? He went straight to the hospital. He went to Vani Vilas Hospital in Bangalore to see the child. And Swami saw the child, blessed the child and the mother, later, I think in April, Swami goes to his house in Chamrajpet in Bangalore. Swami names the child Satyasai Nath. And the teacher in the school says the name is too big and makes Satyasai Nath into Satish. We generally say man proposes, God disposes. This is the other way around. Then God proposed a name and man seems to have contorted it. In fact, much later, Swami again writes a letter to Shankarama saying that I am very displeased with the visit because I couldn't spend much time with you. I promised to come back and I promised to spend more time with all of you. This was in the January, and after Swami came back from Tirupati, Swami spent the next 2 months in the house of this devotee called Thirumal Rao. And we have mentioned his name many, many times. He was one of the devotees who were instrumental in the Patha Mandir being built. And during this time, one very important devotee, important for us, for Swami all are equal, an important devotee made her appearance in the scene. This is Karunamba Ramamurthy, whom Swami would fondly call Kannamma. And for those of you who have read the book Sri Satyasai Anandadai, that book could not have been named more aptly. Because that book itself is an Anandadai. If you read that, you will be in bliss, nothing less than that. She is the author of that book, and she came to Swami for the first time when Swami was staying in Thirumal Rao's house in 1946. But interestingly, her husband, Mr. Ramamurthy, he had darshan of Swami in 1944. And how was that? They were traveling from Hubli to Mysore by train. Mr. Ramamurthy was working in Mysore Railways then. So they were traveling by train through Guntakal, and in one of the stations, there was a lot of commotion in the station, and somebody said, there is this great boy from some village, he's in one of the compartments. So they get very curious, so the husband says, I'll go and find out who it is. And he goes and he comes back, and then he says, there is one Satyam from Puttaparthi, he's wearing a short pant and a shirt, and he's sitting there. He's sitting quietly, and that's his first darshan. But this was much later when they came to Thirumal Rao's house in 1946. What happens is, one day she gets a letter from her cousin. Among the many things the cousin writes to her, he writes a very beautiful sentence. He says, there is one very noble person who is worthy of being accepted as a guru. We should go and see him. So she sets off. She goes to Thirumal Rao's house. And she's a stranger. How do you walk into somebody's bungalow like that and say that I want to see the guest who's staying in your house? And as they're standing at the gate, they see that there's a gathering on the lawns in the garden. And one person who looks very distinct from all the others, he's going around speaking to everybody, and they realize that, okay, that is the person who may come to see. But the next moment, Swami comes. The moment he sees that these people are standing at the gate, Swami comes. Swami blesses them, gives them Pad Namaskar, and then Swami says, tomorrow is Thursday, there's going to be bhajans. All of you come for bhajans. And she writes in Satyasai Anandadai, from that moment, this Baba became our Swami. There was no looking back. The next morning they come and Swami gives them an interview and Swami speaks to them. The family is from Mysore, they come all the way to Bangalore, stay in their uncle's house. But just so that they can have few more darshans, they extend their stay in Bangalore. And during one of the visits, they come and tell Swami, Swami, you should come to our house in Bangalore. And Swami says, no, I don't have any time. But they plead with Swami, and then Swami plans to make a flying visit. So Swami quickly comes, he says, no lunch. You do Pada Puja, and very quickly he does everything very fast. He takes a glass of juice, he takes a spoon of Vangi Bath, as they've written in the book. And then Swami says, enough, I'm done with all this. And Swami leaves, and they're thrilled. And because it's just the first visit, they don't even know what to ask Swami. They're just glad that Swami has come. But very shortly after that, they travel to Puttaparthi. One thing that she asks Swami after building a lot of courage is, Swami, why were you born a man? Why should the avatar always be a man? She said, why not Swami could have come as Sai Mai? Why as a man? And Swami just laughed it off. Maybe Swami will give a reply later. That is one of the things she records, but there's another very sweet incident on the eve of the day they are actually leaving. The next day they're leaving and their heart is torn apart, really sad. So Swami comes to where they're staying in Patha Mandir, And Swami asked them, have you packed all your things? Are you ready to leave? And everything. And then Swami asked, have you had your dinner? So they say, no Swami, we don't feel like having dinner because our heart is so heavy. So Swami gives them some bananas and Swami says, you eat. And then Swami's dinner comes, right? Sakama comes with Swami's dinner. And then Swami starts crying like a little kid. Swami says, all of you are going. See, she's also going. Tomorrow Sakama is also going. And I'll be left all alone here. He pushes the plate. He says, I don't want the food. Everybody is going. And Sakama says, no Swami, don't tell like that. Please have your food. Then we'll... Because she was leaving that very night. So she said, how will I leave if you don't eat like this? And then Swami, with a long face, he's mixing the rice and sambar. And he says, nobody cares for me. Nobody likes me here. Everybody is leaving me and going. Then Sakama says, what Swami, you have so many devotees, as though you'll even think of us after we go. And what does Swami say? Devotees, these people, see how much noise they're making in the shed, how loudly they're talking to each other. And all of them are so superficial, I have to spend my time with all of them now. And she says, no Swami, nothing like that, they're all good devotees. And she goes. Then after Sakama goes, Swami tells Kannamma and her sister, Radhamma. Swami says, see what she is giving me. Morning's rice she is giving me. This old lady, because she has to leave today, she has not cooked for me. And then Swami says, see, even the sambar is stale. And Kannamma writes, actually the sambar was not stale. Obviously nobody will serve that to Swami. And Swami is saying, nobody cares for me. And he's eating like that. And then Swami says, at least if the rice is hot, I can eat. Then immediately they say, okay Swami, we have prepared hot rice. We will get. Oh, you've prepared hot rice. Okay, get. I'll have that. So they go and get the rice. And then Swami eats the food, and then with a mischievous smile he says, see how I got your dinner out. And I'm sure after that they would have eaten their dinner thinking of it as prasadam. As Krishna tells Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Arjuna, you should be like my friend. Also treat me like your guru. Because only if you look at me as your friend, you will be free to ask me doubts. And only if you treat me as your guru, you'll obey me. So it is not important looking at Swami only as a God and Guru, but also that feeling of he is my Swami should always be there. And this is how Swami built it in the lives of so many devotees.
When we read the Leelas and Mahimas of the initial days, Kannamma, then we have Vijayamma, then we have Rani Ma, so many Mas. You feel that Swami, you came as a man, but still it's the women who got chances. It is a recency effect, We see the last 5 years, last 10 years and think, oh, what is this? So much he has showered actually. I don't think that anybody can claim to have got less or more. Everybody has got perfectly. It is beautiful because that is how the Lord's master plan is. During one of those days when Swami was in Bangalore, a very, very interesting episode happened. All kinds of people would come to see Swami, and there was this cobbler on the street. As he was mending his shoes, he saw that a lot of cars were coming into one building, one bungalow, and he wondered what was going on. So he just left those shoes and the slippers that he was repairing, mending, and he walked across. And he got to know that some great being was visiting, a great personage from Puttaparthi, a young lad but who has great powers, who is Guru, who is like God to many. So he was very fascinated, so he thought he also must go in and see who it is. But then he saw everybody getting huge garlands and fruits and all these offerings. Whatever little he could afford, he took one small garland with a few flowers in it, and he also walked into this place. Bhajans were going on. He sat down. Swami was on the dais there. And then to his amazement, Swami walks and comes straight to him and accepts his offering, that garland. And he's so overwhelmed in the presence of Bhagwan. Then Swami asks him, what do you want? He doesn't know, He doesn't know what to ask. That is what happens, All our life we keep asking for so many things. Finally, when we come face to face with God, everything seems so minuscule, everything seems so tiny. That was the experience even of Swami Vivekananda. He comes and tells his Guru Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, I am having all these difficulties. Tell your mother to solve my difficulties. I have financial troubles at home. I have so many problems. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa tells, go tell, the mother is there, go tell her. He goes and comes out, and Ramakrishna Paramahamsa asks, did you tell the mother? He says, no. Then you did not speak. No, I spoke, but I asked her to give me bhakti. You asked for bhakti, you should have asked for money. Go in, go ask again. Don't forget what you have come here for. And he goes and he comes back and he says, no, this time I asked for faith. I asked for love. And he says, Gurudev, in the mother's presence, I can't ask for such cheap things. I just can't ask. That is what happens. And this cobbler who could have asked for a million things, he says, Swami, come to my house. Swami says, okay, I'll come to your house. Now, first of all, I don't think the cobbler expected that Swami will tell, I'll come to your house. But Swami says, I'll come to your house. He says, okay. And then Swami walks back. Now the cobbler is, okay, when is Swami going to come to my house? Because he has to make things ready, right? But he never got the opportunity to interact with Swami. And after the session gets over, Swami has gone in. He walks around trying to ask different people. Nobody actually helps him. He forgets it also. He gives up the hope that Swami will come. 3 days later, a big car stops in front of this cobbler and he gets scared. First his thought is maybe some commissioner of police or somebody is, because he's just doing it on the road. It's not some legal shop or anything like that. But when the door opens, out steps Swami and his jaw drops. It's almost like Swami picks up his jaw and tells, come sit back inside the car. Sit in the car. He sits in the car, Swami sits. No words. He's just dumbstruck. They say when the heart is full, words are few. And Swami is directing the car. Go here, take right there, take left, to the cobbler's home. Arrives at the cobbler's home, he walks in. Nothing is ready. The cobbler doesn't have anything. He just quickly picks a towel and cleans up a wooden board, plank, which he keeps it against the wall as a backrest. And Swami sits there. The cobbler rushes inside the kitchen. His wife, they're in bliss. They have just a few bananas. They offer those bananas. Swami happily eats those bananas. The Lord is thirsting for love. Wherever he gets that love, he will go there. Nothing else matters. In the Dwapara Yuga, Krishna, when he comes to Hastinapura to talk about peace, Duryodhana decides that I will make him indebted to me by treating him very royally. But Krishna refuses the hospitality of Duryodhana. Instead, he goes to the house of Vidura. And Vidura is a humble devotee there. And he goes and stays in his home. And Vidura is so thrilled. There's a beautiful Hindi song on that. It says,
सबसो ऊंची प्रेम सगाई, सबसो ऊंची प्रेम सगाई, दुर्योधन का मेवा त्याग्यो, दुर्योधन का मेवा त्याग्यो, साग विदुर घन खायो.
means love is the greatest for the Lord. Duryodhana ka meva tyagyo. You gave up the rich food at Duryodhana's house. You had normal food at Vidura's house. And what was the normal food?
हरि तो बसे प्रेम के भूखे, हरि तो बसे प्रेम के भूखे.
Vidura was so lost in the bliss of seeing Krishna that it is said that he peeled the bananas, threw the fruit and offered the peels.
O Prema Swarupa, who can ever fathom your love? Lost in the ecstasy of your presence, I foolishly offered the peels, throwing away the fruit.
नारायण वैकुंठ को त्याग्यो, नारायण वैकुंठ को त्याग्यो, नर को प्रेम पढ़ायो, सबसो ऊंची प्रेम सगाई.
O
Madhura. Your bliss alone is my food. Any call from the depths of the heart, rest assured that I will respond.
Here in this cobbler's house also Swami accepted whatever he had, blessed him profusely and then drove away. The cobbler was in bliss. To this day we don't know who that cobbler is. It doesn't matter because he has got an immortal place in the Lord's heart.
ऊंची प्रेम सगा